welcome to the $1 trillion Glocal opportunity. Glocal, no spelling error. We at Commission Junction like to say, in order to win global, you have to act local. I don't know if you remember this, but a few years back, Walmart decided to go global. And one of the countries that they picked was Germany, my homeland. And they decided to copy what worked for them in the US, low prices, smiley faces, and friendly salespeople. And one thing that you need to know about Germany, other than the fact that we are very price conscious, is that we are not known for our friendly salespeople. That's true. As a matter of fact, when we enter a store, we expect rudeness. Now, Walmart decided to change all that. They had very ambitious plans. They wanted to open 70 retail outlets and train the sales personnel. And it took them a few years to figure out that we weren't ready for friendly salespeople. They closed all their stores. Now, why is this relevant today? It's relevant today because when you go global offline, it's high cost, high risk. But today, we are at an online marketing conference. We are at the CJU. And we here at CJ can help you to go global online. It's low risk and cost effective. A couple of months ago, actually a couple of weeks ago, I had to fly from New York to London to meet our UK country manager, who's actually co-presenting today with me. And I was getting settled in my airline seat, ready to read my paper. You know, they do this little safety message, a video screen pops up. And the president said, well, I'm so-and-so, and I do care. And I'm thinking, I'm sitting in economy, I don't feel the love. So I'm dozing off, but a few seconds later, he starts talking about global. And he has my attention now because that's what I do. I do global. He's talking about how they're the premier global airline with hubs all around the world. And where they don't have hubs, they have local partners. They make it very easy to get from one country to the next. And I said, wait a minute, that's exactly what we do here at CJ. We have hubs, offices in the Americas, Europe, and Asia. And we do have partners in over 150 countries, our publishers. So that's our reach. Now, one thing I have to add, and before I add it, actually, I should say, we make it also very easy to go global because we have one technology, and it doesn't matter what program you want to add, it's always the same. We have a global network quality team. We are transparent. And so what I do want to add is that we do care. And I know this for a fact because your success is our success. So we have a vested interest to make you successful. And when I look at global, I look at opportunities also outside your core country. And this is an incremental revenue opportunity with global affiliate reach. This is your way, if you are in a mature market, and most of us are in a mature market, to extend your affiliate reach. Today, in a few minutes, we will have real-life examples from our on-stage interview with a successful publisher and a successful advertiser who will share with us how they went global with CJ. So if we are successful today, you will walk away with clear next steps on how to go global with your program. Let's talk about the $1 trillion opportunity for 1 second. I just want to bring it up again because it's so huge. It's such a great opportunity for us. Another number that I find very interesting, and it's related to our topic today, it's about cross-border shopping. PayPal did a survey. They asked shoppers in 6 major countries, the UK, US, Germany, Brazil, Australia, and China. Almost 100 million shoppers will spend over $100 billion in goods from foreign companies. And this is just the beginning. As you will see over the years to come, if you look at your core country, you will see you will depend on additional opportunities outside of your country. Now, the last number I want to discuss today is the number I get most excited about, and that is 90%. 90% of our existing advertiser base is already global. Knowingly or unknowingly, you are seeing revenue from visitors outside your core country. That's huge, and as Carrie mentioned this morning, let's use this information and bring your affiliate program to the next level. This is the right time to introduce my co-presenter, Florian Grandshammer from the UK office. He is an expert in affiliate marketing. He is an expert in local affiliate marketing and the EU. Florian?
Thank you, Nile. Thanks for the great introduction, Nile. The Walmart story always makes me laugh. Having grown up in a country neighboring Germany, I always think everyone should experience once what it's like to walk into a shop in Germany and be treated like you're not meant to be there. So I do expect a great influx of tourism to Germany of all of you to kind of try that out soon. But before I introduce my 2 guests today, I'd quite like to get an idea of who is in the room, please. Would you mind giving me a show of hands if you are an advertiser? Great. And if you're a publisher? And do we have any agency partners? Great, thanks very much. Right, I'd like to introduce 2 guests to you today that will talk about international opportunities and their experience. First up on stage with me is Mara Tyler. Mara brings 13 years of marketing and e-commerce experience to our session today. She spent the last 6 years in international customer international affiliate marketing and customer acquisition. And Mara now runs her own company, Tyler Consulting, helping advertisers and publishers expand their business. Please welcome her to the stage. My next guest is Noah Arahan. Noah is the president and CEO of ExtraBucks. ExtraBucks is one of the United States' most popular cashback websites, and it was founded in 2006 during Noah's freshman year at university. Noah has since grown that website into a very successful business, and more importantly, he's expanded internationally, most significantly in China, and that's what we're going to talk to him about today. So please come to the stage, Noah.
Good start.
All right, so let me just get set up here. I need a little timer because I like to talk and I don't want to overrun and keep you from your next session. Okay. Right. Let's get right started, okay? Mara, let's talk a little bit about your experience, which is mainly in Europe, and how you've built really successful partnerships internationally. I mean, one of the greatest challenges working internationally is managing at a great distance, right? You're based in the US, you're managing partners in Europe, there's different time zones, different cultures to deal with. Could you share with us and the audience a little bit about how you made that so successful for yourself?
Sure. So I think the easiest thing to do, whether you're an advertiser or a publisher, is to first take a look at your existing partners. From the advertiser side, if I have partners, affiliates that are already experiencing a fairly robust US program, are there partners that I feel I can approach speak to and say, are you interested in looking at going global? The existing relationships you have are going to be the best way for you to make a big impact with potentially lower risk. So, I'd go to my affiliates and say, you guys have done really well in the US. Are you interested in looking at some other countries? Tell them what our, what our top countries are, what our top products are, help them learn the markets. So that they can go ahead and take a look at their own resources, their own base, and figure out if this is something that they can work with us on as well.
Great. I mean, partnerships are probably one of the most important things in going international. I mean, one in your experience and working obviously through a network and with account managers around the world, how do you do that, right? That's a lot of contacts to maintain, and that's a lot of concepts to kind of roll across different markets. Give us a little bit of insight and maybe a few giveaways for the audience.
So I think, obviously, most of my experience has been working with Commission Junction, and the fact that I have managed programs globally with them for the last 6 years. So I think that potentially we were doing global and looking to go international before a lot of other companies were really starting to look into that. We leveraged the CJ network extensively. I think we had business in about 80 countries on our side, on the advertiser side, but CJ has feet on the street in, I believe, 10 or 11 countries at this point. So really leveraging the existing relationships we have with Commission Junction, with our account managers. They also have network internally, Commission Junction does. So if we were looking at a potential country, we might go and say, this is working for us in this country. Are there other countries that we could be doing this in as well? And also putting a little bit of the onus back on the network as well to say internally, you guys have a really robust network. So can we do this in other countries? And maybe I don't want to be the one calling all of the, all of the affiliates and the different countries. And so CJ was really helpful in helping us figure out what might work in other countries, what might not work. We were able to easily test things. It's not as big of a deal if you test and potentially have a bit of a failure if you're not investing a ton to get there in the first place, and it helped us figure out what was going to work for us and what might not.
Great. I mean, I think testing is a really important element of going internationally, but you said another thing there that I think is probably very relevant is you're rolling concepts across different countries that work for you in other markets. To what extent do you kind of adjust them to local customs and modify them to kind of work for consumers in country?
So the example that Neela gave was great about Germany because depending on what types of products you have, they're not going to necessarily work for every country. In Australia, we found that they didn't really respond very well to coupons. They wanted to feel as though they were purchasing a very high-end product. And so if you looked at the demographics across our products, across our top 10 countries, what was top in the US might not be the same product that was in Australia or Germany. So you really can't have a one-size-fits-all approach about it. You really do have to look at it from a country-to-country perspective. Most of my experience is in Europe, but even across, whether it's Europe or in China or other areas, you also can't just say international is just one section. Every country, and sometimes even within the country, you'll find nuances. Canada has French Canadian speaking and non-French, and so we had to market to them differently. So it can take a little bit of extra effort, but once you have figured it out, and you've figured out how to speak to the customers, it's a benefit that will take you, very far.
Great. And this kind of doing those kind of customizations by country, it kind of needs you to build some local market expertise, and you will have acquired some through the network. What other things did you do to kind of get that? Did you travel? Did you meet partners in country?
Yeah, so I think one of the best ways you can go out to new countries and figure out what's going to work for you is by attending in-country events. So, we would go to, there's different affiliate, conferences. So we went to A4U in Spain. There were 1 or 2 in Brazil. So when we were researching Brazil as a market to go into, we would go to the conferences out in Brazil. And even if we weren't ready necessarily to invest in that country and actually put the infrastructure in place, it made sense for us to figure out who are the big players in that market, to get some business cards, to just, start making those relationships and building those partnerships so that when we were ready, we knew exactly who to go to, who to talk to. The other thing which is great is even when you're in another country, just stop and take a look at how they're advertising, even on the shop fronts, like how are they speaking to their customers? In certain countries, they'll have percentage off, in other they'll put dollar. It's not going to be the same way that we do everything in the U.S. And I know as as an American, I always tend to think, well, this is the way we do it. This is probably the best way to do it. Look how successful, our country is. But if you want to be in other countries, there are ways to get it done that are going to be different than, what we're used to.
Great. Some really good insight there. Well, we're already on a plane and attending conferences. Let's take it back for a minute a little bit. And from talking to you earlier, I learned that over the years, you have used your international experience to help some of your existing publisher partners to expand internationally that you've worked with domestically, and that you made recommendations to on how to expand internationally. What are some of the tips that you would give them if they look at going international and how to make it successful?
So, speaking, as an advertiser to a publisher is, definitely as an advertiser, you can give them your own local market expertise. So if as an advertiser, you're already in that country, then you're already going to have some demographic data, purchase habits that you can help your publisher with. The other thing that we can help them with is go into English-speaking countries first. So if you're selling something like software and you don't want to be translating that software into other languages, you can easily go into Australia, into Canada, into the UK, and you also won't have to be translating your pages, your ad copy. You might have to make some tweaks here and there, but you're not going to necessarily need to rewrite the book. You're not going to have to deal with expensive translations. So I think just working really closely, whether you're the advertiser or the publisher, and having that partnership and really kind of squeezing every last bit of information you can out of your partner who has that knowledge is really going to help you make the expansion a little bit more smooth.
Great. I think there's a great opportunity there. But that, it still comes with quite a lot of challenges. Now you're suddenly looking into different markets and, okay, well, it may be in English, but it's all different currencies. There's a lot of different network opportunities out there. It needs new accounts. Where as a publisher do they start? Or where would you tell them to start?
Well, again, start with your existing relationships. But, one of the things that was important for some of our publisher partners that we would approach, I would say, hey, you're doing so great for us in the US. What about going to the UK? And they would say, well, my program's in the US. I don't even know who to talk to. I don't really know what to do. So, if they're already with CJ or they're already with a network, I would say leverage your existing resources again in that network. And also with CJ, publishers have the capability to get paid in US dollars, which was really important for some of our publishers who are located in the US. So we were able to, convince them to go test out other markets, but still get paid in US dollars. So there wasn't any conversion happening. There wasn't any, extra work on their end. They were just able to go ahead, write some copy, get some ads going, get some landing pages, and, we would help them get set up in the system, and, then they could just be testing things within a week or so.
Great. And payments are a tricky thing, right? Even from an advertiser perspective. How do you manage all that? Different invoices, again, currencies, currency conversion?
Well, we didn't do any of that. That was all through CJ.
Okay, well, that's a good thing, right? Like for CJ.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else. So you've done all, like from a publisher's perspective, how do you manage your personal resources and all of those relationships? Because there's still a lot of people to maintain and kind of work through.
Yeah, so going back to working with our existing resources, with the relationship that we had with CJ, we were a fairly large advertiser, and we were able to leverage the account managers in the other countries that we were interested in working with. We would have team calls with the advertisers, with the account managers, but really, I think putting some of the onus back on the network and asking them to really help you out, whether you're a publisher or an advertiser. And really taking advantage of the resources they have internally. I think that Neela and Carrie also alluded to the fact that you guys have all these offices, you have all these data, networks. Like, tap into that and don't try to do it, all by yourself, because whether you're an account manager or you're a program manager, whether you're advertiser, publisher, you are just going to be one person or a small team, and you have a giant resource, on the other side. So I think tapping into that, I'm always a fan of making other people do my work. So, just take a look at what you have and see who you can have help you. You don't have to do it, all alone.
Okay, that's good. Well, it's always good to kind of have trusted relationship and partnerships,
Yes.
right? But then you're starting to work across different cultures and different kind of ways of doing business. I'm sure you must have a book full of good stories to tell there.
Well, I think to go back to Neela's example too, every country is going to be different. I know for us, one of the big learning experiences we had to learn about was planning for summer vacations in Europe, because in the US, we're all a bunch of workaholics, we take like a week off every year maybe, and in Europe, they're a lot better about work-life balance, and we had to learn that we had to plan ahead for making sure that everyone could take their vacations in Europe. The other thing is also cultures and even just cultural differences, what you can expect when you walk into a store, when you talk with someone. When we would travel abroad, we would see potentially our store manager from Sweden, and there might be one from France and one from Italy. And the Sweden account manager was so friendly, he'd rush up to you and he would give you the kiss on both sides of the cheek, and you would give him the hug, and then you would just move over to the French account manager and he would look at you like, don't touch me, so it's like, even just being there, even if you know people, you really just have to learn how each country prefers to be worked with, how people prefer to be worked with. And so I think, it definitely taught me just not to take things for granted just because one person does it. Even if you know the person, you really just have to learn how to work with individuals. And really, it's a good lesson, not just for international expansion, but I guess just in general in like personal space. So.
I have one more question for you, and I know that you've always. I would say, obviously, that there is sense in consolidating into a fewest network so you can build on the strength of the network that you work with. You also always have looked to kind of consolidate as much as you can and build on strength. What's your rationale for doing that and building on your existing partnerships?
Well, I think, if you have a good partnership, whether it be with a publisher, an advertiser, or a network, really having that trust and respect for the other side. I would a lot of times just sit down with, whether it's my account manager or even one of our top publishers, and just say, hey, we're thinking of doing this. Can we have a brainstorm session? But 2 brains, 3 brains is usually better than 1. And if you also know somebody who's been successful in doing what you want to do or going where you want to go, approaching that person and just picking their brain and asking to spend some time with them. If people have already done what you want to do, then don't be afraid to just try to get up there and learn what you can.
Great. Well, thanks, Mara. There's a lot about relationships there, I think, to be learned, especially international relationships. But let's give you a little break and let's chat to Noah for a little while. Noah, first of all, I think, building a site in your freshman's year in university and then making it this successful is, to me, a great story. Tell us a bit more about ExtraBooks and your company.
Yeah, so started ExtraBooks back in 2006 as a side project at USC. We're able to kind of build that out during our time there. Won the USC Business Planning competition, won some money from the university, and didn't have to get real jobs after school. Got to do this, which was quite fun. Many of you probably might know Jeff, who's my business partner. He would be coming to these things. I think he's been coming since 2007, when he used to use a fake ID to get in the after parties. So he's actually now in China because we expanded internationally. Been growing very nicely. In 2000, according to Inc., we were the 156th fastest growing company in 2012. And a lot of that came from international expansion, or expansion into particularly China, a little bit in Korea and Russia. But we focus most of our energy on China. And we now have a 25-person shop out there that Jeff runs. And been a big piece of our expansion. We recently also joined PMB, Performance Marketing Brands, as one of their additional brands, and are helping take the product international and helping merchants better speak to Chinese consumers and sell their goods there, because they're already doing it. Sometimes they just don't know it.
That's a great thing. So, and that brings me nicely to my first question. As Neela mentioned earlier, if you operate in a mature in a mature market, kind of finding new customers isn't so easy anymore. So international expansion is obviously a great way of doing that. But there are so many markets out there. How did you decide where to go and which markets to enter, and what drove your decisions?
I mean, I think we started, what was interesting is, as Neela started with the overall, people are buying overseas, it's happening. And so you can start by putting your pulse and listening to your consumers. Where are they coming from? But after that, there's a world of opportunities, right? And so you have to kind of assess all these different opportunities, looking at the scale of each market, looking at who the consumer is in those markets, trying to talk to the customers in each one of those markets, and make decisions on where not to go for different reasons, whether it be regulatory concerns or just overall challenges of getting into specific markets or overall size of a specific market. And we chose China because, while being one of the hardest markets to enter and with huge regulatory hurdles, the overall size of that market is just incredible. And the consumers are real there, and there's an emerging middle class that can buy our products, and they already spend $7 billion a year overseas, and that's been growing at 100% year over year for the last 2 years. And then meanwhile, the Chinese e-commerce market will be the largest in 2016, and by 2020 will be as large as the US, UK, Germany, France, and Japan combined.
Great.
So it's time to start going.
Great opportunity. It does come with its challenges, and I'm sure you've experienced many of them yourself. But before we talk about that, you obviously are still the only foreign-owned cashback website in China, and it puts you in quite a unique position, having the US experience and having people on the ground in China advising advertisers on market entry and how to be successful. What kind of recommendations do you have for retailers who are either already doing business in China or that are planning to do business in China?
Yeah, I think it's an amazing time to be getting into it, because you have the opportunity to define your brand there. Just because you may be the number 3 player in the States doesn't really matter to the Chinese. They don't really care whether you were 1 or 3. I mean, obviously Apple kind of has a brand that has global presence, but that's rarely the case in e-commerce. So I think you have a chance to define your brand. I think you have a chance to do it in a low-risk way, where you can be focused on what products my consumers even want. I don't have to put my whole product catalog over there, work on distribution. I don't even need to actually translate the site. We have local customer support and local marketing campaigns, and we're on the ground learning about these different norms in each society, in the society. We spent the last essentially 2 years studying China and then executing and going into China. So I think it's an amazing place with amazing opportunities, but it also has concerns. You have concerns about fraud, you have concerns about regulations of the government. But in general, there are real consumers there. new users that merchants can capitalize on, and see if China is right for you without making, I think similar to what Mara was talking about, it's a testing strategy. Don't go full bore in there when you can kind of play from the edges and then make those decisions based on the performance of the overall company and the specific products within that perform well in each market.
Great. Chinese consumer, right? And I'm just putting myself in their shoes and I'm thinking, I really want these goods from those American websites and I want them at the best value, right? And they're likely to be good value as they're sold, but then suddenly I have to pay UPS or FedEx to get them to me and that value goes away. What happens? How do they get it?
Yeah, so that's one of the interesting things we learned is basically about 80% of products that get shipped to China from US retailers go first through forwarding companies. So if you're looking at I only ship a small amount of products directly to China via DHL or FedEx or whatever, well, you probably should multiply that number by 5. That's more likely what you're actually doing in China and Asia more broadly. Additionally, so what's going on is they're shipping to these forwarding companies. These forwarding companies receive the package, slap a Chinese label on it, buy air freight, and ship it out to China. It takes a little bit longer, but the customers want that high quality, especially and health and beauty categories do phenomenally well for us, where you're putting stuff on or in your body. It's a reason to get the right thing and not get a knockoff. So I think it's understanding that maybe your fraud detection says, look, all these products are going to this one location. That must be fraud, but it's actually a forwarding company. Or you could have a user who's buying all these products and again shipping it to one location. Why would this one user spend this much money? It must be a reseller. Well, it could also be a Daigou shopper, which is this basically company that shops on behalf of Chinese individuals who aren't able to navigate the websites. So these methods, Chinese are very creative in finding ways to drive down the price, but it's not fully a game of price. It's also of quality. Interesting as we buy more and more from them, they're starting to buy from us because they don't trust their own goods.
That's quite funny. So, look, I don't trust them either. But I would buy.
Still do it.
So look, I'm a retailer. I'm not Amazon. I'm not eBay. I want to exploit that market opportunity. I love the idea of those forwarding companies. I want to expand on it. But if I go to China, will they know my brand? To what extent does the Chinese consumer know American brands? And as I'm really well known here. They must know me there, right?
To be honest, probably not. They probably don't know your brand. But I think it's been one of the really interesting things we've seen through our relationships with merchants, where we see all the purchases that are kind of coming through the system. We know what our users are doing. We understand their behavior, and we can look at them and grab merchants and say, I think you might do well. Let's do a promotion. And like time and time again, you see this huge bump. Hey, I'm here. I exist, and we're going to do some special deal. And then the volume, while obviously coming down, remains higher and continues to grow from that point because we now introduced you. And then oftentimes we do ongoing promotions, and it just continues to kind of ramp up. And I feel like we're getting this opportunity to almost build merchants in these new markets. And now joining PNB, we're able to do it at a much greater scale. So it's exciting to not only do that in China, but also in Korea, and then the next markets we go to.
Great. Well, let's go beyond China. Just go all Asia. Why not? We talked quite a bit about your recommendations to advertisers there and what some of the opportunities are, but I guess there is also an element that's really interesting from a publisher perspective, and that's how the local competitive landscape is really very different. Could you share a little bit more about what that looks like? I mean, I was fascinated by the whole setup. I didn't know anything until
the Chinese e-commerce market. Yeah. So one player owns 83% of the market, which is Alibaba, between Taobao and Tmall. There are a handful of other smaller players that own portions of the market. So going in, like Amazon, I think owns sub 1% of the market right now. Newegg owns sub 1%. So everybody wants to play in that space, and it can, even if you do own 1% of, the largest e-commerce market in the world, or soon to be, that's still something substantial. But I think it's interesting, before you make those big investments that those companies have made, Walmart's been there since '94 and just got to a point where they can own 51% of an e-commerce company. I think using the affiliate space as a testing ground, it's really easy, it's natural, and to be honest, good luck in other forms of marketing there. If you want to do some SEM, good luck getting real traffic. It's really difficult, and I think through consumer engagement with our users and in the right blogs and through the right social media channels, and then through our distribution channels, we're able to find real customers.
So you definitely have to try and chart new territories to tap into those opportunities.
Exactly.
But just from an advertiser perspective, where there's really great opportunity there, where would you recommend an advertiser starts? What would be your first steps to them?
I mean, not to plug, but I think honestly just doing a simple promotion, seeing if there's stickiness to the products you work on. Do people want your products? You might think they want a certain category of goods, and they're buying this other category of goods. And then monitor that behavior and work with the people who are doing the promotions, who are educated on China and what we're doing there, and let them kind of help guide what's been successful for other merchants that have been first exposed and then grown within these new markets, so that we can help you bring more users, and specifically more new users who are spending like real people. I mean, by 2015, the Chinese consumer will be spending $1,000 a year online. Today, we spend $1,200, so there's not much of a difference there. So I think you got to test it. You got to get in there.
Good. Right, we're almost out of time. I'll give you your break shortly, and I'll do more of the talking in a second. But Mara has had some great stories about kind of her experiences doing business internationally and with different cultures. Have you got anything that you could share?
I think, hope you like karaoke. We have a lot of fun. It's been really neat. We got to hire, we have one expat two expats in the office. Jeff's there with the whole Chinese team. He's about a good foot taller than most people there, and it's really awesome. I think that we have this awesome local team that we built really from the ground up, and made a lot of really good hiring decisions to bring on high quality talent, and that's been really rewarding.
That's great. Thank you, Noah.
Yeah.
All right. Some really, really good insights there, I think, on how to get started internationally and maybe some of the things to consider. What I quite like to do before I make a few more introductions for you is wrap up some of the key points that have been talked about. So, we heard from Neil earlier that there are some really interesting numbers. The one that stands out for me, and clearly did for Kerry, it came up in her presentation too, is that 90% of CJ advertisers or CJ clients already experience that cross-border traffic. So it is out there, and there are clear opportunities to kind of capitalize on them. So where do you start? And from a CJ perspective, right? You have all of these different next steps, but you can go trial and error, you can build your relationships, you can build trusted partnerships, you can go like Noah did and put 20 people on the ground and go full in. There are a couple of decisions to be made. Whichever way you go, you will need to build partnerships and go and work through those partnerships to be successful. Whether you're going for the basic first steps and look whether there is international traffic in your existing sites already, or put people on the ground, you will need to build relationships. One thing that helps with those relationships, and I think that's clear from both of our partners, is working with your existing partner. Obviously, I would say that, and you don't need me to sell to you, but with CJ's recent expansions into China, CJ is the network to do business with internationally. We're in Europe, we're in the US, we're in Asia. But there are a couple of things that are important there, and I think those are important only as next steps to get you along the way. The single platform technology makes it easier than any other suppliers to get going internationally. We have reach into 150 countries. We transact in over 100. We can transact in over 100 currencies. We can pay publishers in any currency that they work in. We can work with advertisers and their invoices in any invoices that they need them in. As Kerry mentioned this morning, our international account management structures will help you build on your local market strength, and our customized approach to those local account management structures will help you build on the strengths and the experiences that you have in other countries. Thank you very much.